Ferrari. It's hard to imagine Ferrari ever struggling, but back in the late 1960s, the legendary brand was running on fumes. Enzo Ferrari had poured nearly everything into racing, his true passion, but that obsession came at a huge cost. The road cars meant to fund those racing dreams weren't selling fast enough, and by 1969, Ferrari was drowning in debt. The company was moments away from collapse when Fiat swooped in, buying 50% of the brand and saving it from bankruptcy. It wasn't the last rough patch, though. After Enzo's death in 1988, Ferrari stumbled again before Luca di Montezemolo stepped in and turned the struggling icon back into a global powerhouse. Hey, we'll get to the next one in a bit, but first, make sure you hit that subscribe button to the channel to get more videos like this. Lamborghini. After Ferruccio Lamborghini's feud with Enzo Ferrari sparked the birth of his own brand, the company took off through the 1960s with jaw-dropping cars that redefined speed and style. But when the 1973 oil crisis hit, demand for gas-guzzling supercars crashed overnight. Sales tanked, and by 1974, Ferruccio sold the company and stepped away. Just 4 years later, Lamborghini was bankrupt. The brand fell into receivership under the Memran brothers, who pulled off a comeback with cars like the Alfa and LM002. Though Lamborghini kept bouncing between owners for years, it eventually found stability under Audi in 1998, finally escaping the bankruptcy curse. Aston Martin. The legendary British brand, famous for its racing roots and Bond-level style, has gone bankrupt not once, not twice, but 7 times. It all started in the 1920s when founder Lionel Martin's dream crashed twice in just 2 years. The company kept stumbling through the 1930s until David Brown swooped in during 1947, giving birth to the iconic DB series. But even he had to clear millions in debt before bowing out. The 1970s oil crisis hit hard, forcing another collapse and desperate buyouts just to keep the lights on. Through all of the chaos, Aston Martin somehow survived every storm, proof that legends don't die easily. Maserati. Founded by the Maserati brothers and born from racing success, the brand's speed and style couldn't save it from disaster. By the late 1950s, debt had piled up so high that banks were ready to shut it down completely. Then came a lifeline in 1968 when Citroën bought the company, hoping to turn it into a luxury powerhouse. But the oil crisis of the early 70s crushed sports car demand, dragging both Citroën and Maserati into bankruptcy. Things got so bad that the Italian government had to step in to keep Maserati from disappearing altogether, a stylish survivor barely clinging to life. Lotus. Lotus was once the fearless rebel of British racing, fast, light, and brilliantly innovative. But by the early 1980s, that daring spirit had pushed the company to the edge of collapse. Founder Colin Chapman's constant pursuit of innovation drained finances faster than profits could recover, and when the economy crashed, Lotus was already drowning in debt. Things went from bad to worse when Chapman suddenly died in 1982, leaving the company without its visionary leader. Then came the DeLorean scandal, wrecking their reputation just as they were gasping for air. By 1983, Lotus was essentially bankrupt, its future hanging by a thread until businessman David Wicken stepped in and saved it from total extinction. Jaguar. Jaguar might have looked like the picture of British luxury, but by the late 1980s, things were falling apart behind the scenes. Sales had crashed, especially in the US, and profits that once roared were now barely a whisper. The company was running out of money fast, and investors had lost all faith. That's when Ford swooped in with a $2.5 billion rescue deal in 1989, keeping Jaguar alive. But just when things started to look better, the 2008 financial crisis hit hard, pushing Jaguar right back towards bankruptcy. Ford was forced to sell, and against all odds, Tata Motors stepped in, pulling the legendary brand back from the brink once again. Saab. Known for its quirky designs and groundbreaking safety features, the Swedish automaker built a loyal fan base that truly loved its cars. But passion alone couldn't keep the lights on. Under GM's ownership in the late 2000s, Saab was bleeding cash and heading straight for disaster. In 2010, a small Dutch company called Spyker bought them, promising a comeback that never came. Production stopped, suppliers backed off, and when Chinese investors tried to step in, GM blocked the deal. That move sealed Saab's fate. By 2011, the company went bankrupt, marking the end of a daring but doomed chapter in automotive history. Alfa Romeo. In the early 1900s, Alfa Romeo built some of the most breathtaking cars ever made, winning races and hearts everywhere. But behind the glamour, Alfa was a financial mess. By 1933, it was drowning in debt so badly that the Italian government had to take control just to keep it alive. For decades, Alfa struggled under state ownership, constantly losing money despite its iconic status. By the 1980s, the situation was dire. Poor reliability and mounting losses pushed the brand to the edge of collapse. Then in 1986, Fiat stepped in, rescuing Alfa from bankruptcy and giving it one last chance to rebuild its legacy. Chrysler. Back in 2009, the Great Recession wasn't just wrecking banks, it was crushing automakers too. About a month before General Motors hit the wall, Chrysler found itself in the exact same nightmare. Sales had tanked, debts were piling up, and the company was burning through cash like wildfire. By April, there was no way out. They filed for bankruptcy. The government swooped in with a $12.5 billion lifeline to keep them from completely collapsing, and Chrysler managed to pay back most of it later on. But the company was hanging by a thread until Fiat stepped in, fully taking over in 2014 and breathing new life into the once fading American icon. General Motors. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, even the mighty General Motors couldn't escape the wreckage. Once the world's largest automaker, GM found itself drowning in debt, with $173 billion in liabilities against $82 billion in assets. By June 1, 2009, the unthinkable happened. The company filed for bankruptcy, marking the largest industrial collapse in history. Factories shut down, thousands of jobs vanished, and the future looked bleak. But just when it seemed over, the U.S. government stepped in with a massive bailout, saving the company from total collapse. By 2013, GM had repaid most of the funds, proving that even giants can stumble, but true icons find a way back. Tesla. It's crazy to imagine now, but Tesla once stood on the edge of collapse. Between 2017 and 2019, Elon Musk admitted the company was hanging by a thread, facing what he called the most difficult years of his life. Production issues, mounting debt, and overwhelming pressure nearly pushed Tesla into bankruptcy. Musk said if he hadn't thrown everything he had into saving it, the company would have gone under for sure. It was a non-stop grind, working day and night just to keep the lights on. But somehow, Tesla pulled through. That near-death experience became the turning point that transformed it from a struggling startup into one of the most valuable car makers in the world. Ford. In the mid-2000s, Ford, one of the biggest names in the auto world, was hanging by a thread. Sales were tanking, losses were skyrocketing, and by 2006, the company was just inches away from bankruptcy. Desperate to survive, Ford pulled off one of the boldest moves in corporate history. It mortgaged everything, even its legendary blue oval logo, to raise $23 billion in cash. That massive loan became its lifeline. When the 2008 financial crisis hit and rivals like GM and Chrysler went bankrupt, Ford stood its ground. It was a huge gamble, but that risky play is what saved the company from collapse and set the stage for one of the greatest turnarounds in automotive history. Nissan. By the late 1990s, Nissan was on the verge of collapse. The company was buried under a staggering $35 billion in debt, and its cars had lost the spark that once made them special. Sales were weak, profits were non-existent, and many experts believed Nissan wouldn't survive another year. It was a full-blown crisis, factories underperforming, costs spiraling, and no clear direction in sight. Just when it seemed like the end was near, Renault stepped in and took a massive gamble by buying into the struggling brand. That bold move, followed by Carlos Ghosn's tough turnaround plan, pulled Nissan back from the edge of bankruptcy. Peugeot. In the early 2010s, Peugeot was staring straight at disaster. The European car market was collapsing, and Peugeot's sales plunged so hard that the company was losing hundreds of millions of euros every single month. By 2012, things were so bad that the French government had to step in with about 18 billion euros in loan guarantees just to keep the company alive. Thousands of jobs were cut, factories shut down, and Peugeot's long-held independence practically disappeared. It was a brutal stretch that nearly wiped out one of France's most iconic brands. For a while, it really looked like Peugeot's proud history was about to end right there. Volvo. During the 2008 financial crisis, Volvo was hanging by a thread. Ford, which owned the brand at the time, was struggling for survival and began selling off its luxury divisions. Volvo quickly landed on the chopping block, but no one wanted to buy it. Sales had crashed, costs were out of control, and the company's future looked completely hopeless. For months, it seemed like Volvo was destined to disappear. Then came an unexpected twist. Chinese automaker Geely stepped in with a $1.8 billion offer that saved the brand from collapse. It was a risky move, but without that lifeline, Volvo might not have made it through one of the darkest moments in its history. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed our video, please make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and turn on post notifications so you stay updated with all our latest content.